Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Juli Bierwirth on the line. Say hello, Julie.
Hi.
And Julie is the co-founder of Distant Rabbit Games, who had a Kickstarter about a year ago in July for Mantis Falls. This was a beast of a Kickstarter. It 185,000, 6,000 backers, deduction game. Interestingly enough, we're filming this at the time where Hidden Leaders, another deduction game, is killing it on it right now. So maybe this is a popular category people should be paying attention to. But actually, you and I have overlapped a lot recently because you've been like on this tear of learning everything that it takes to manufacture, distribute, market, like everything sort of in this post Kickstarter world, and have clearly decided to take on every partnership and challenge on your own, which is, you know,
Yeah, maybe to our
admirable,
detriment,
admirable.
we'll find out.
But really, very asking and attacking each one of the questions and going after it. And so I thought this would be a great chat because so many people find themselves in this position and then need to work through all these details. Um,
Yeah.
just for everyone to have a little bit more background, like, can you just give us how you got into games, sort of a quick how Mantis Falls came together, and then we can get into those other pieces.
Yeah, sure. So, I played almost no games growing up at all. My family were not big into any kind of games, and it was when I started going to grad school. The traditional, like, it would have been like Catan and Munchkin. Like the things that people bring to parties, and so I started playing some games, started trying out some different ones. I always really loved, like Resistance. I loved all the Hidden Trader ones. And my fiance and I met in grad school, and would have gone to some of those same parties where people were bringing, Hidden Trader and social deduction games and stuff. And so in the course of, getting to know each other and starting a relationship, gaming had always been a really big part of his life. He's got two kids that we now raised together, and played lots of games with them, played lots of games with his family. And so I got sort of adopted into this gaming
Gaming world.
culture. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and to be said, we weren't really, none of us, including him or his family, weren't really deep into the gaming culture, right? Like the community that exists around gaming. That was pretty new to us in starting to understand how to run this Kickstarter. But would have like bought and played tons and tons of games. So one of the things that happened was that we, very shortly after we started our relationship, we were long distance. And we were trying to find really good, immersive, interactive two-player games that we could play from afar with each other, and, tried a bunch of different ones. And a lot of it amounted, because we're sitting here over the phone playing games together, a lot of it amounted to, I would think, he would think, there would be just like dead silence on the phone and be like, so how was your day? And so we were sort of just always kind of trying to find that perfect game. And one of the things that I think at that point really would have loved was a, Hidden Trader game, but, just couldn't find anything for two players. And so in the desire for a Hidden Trader game, for something for two players, for something that was immersive and interactive, Adrian sort of had this idea very suddenly for this game. And it was actually sort of like, I would describe it as like possessed. He went kind of crazy for a few days there. He was incredibly stressed out with, he's a professor, and so he was his first year, and the publisher parish, the tenure challenges and everything. And so he was really exhausted, and when he gets tired and stressed, he tends to just have these enormous, ridiculous bursts of creativity where he doesn't sleep for days at a time and like works on something huge, which I know is it's like not an adaptive response at all, and it's totally different from what I would do, but it's great. So yeah, you would think that it would make me like put him in situations where he'll get exhausted and stressed so that I can like get more out of him, like, squeezing juice out of that.
Sure.
But so, yeah, he came up basically with almost all of the core mechanics of the game within the first day or two. And he was, calling me over the phone and describing it to me. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, we're not game designers, and this seems like you're kind
But
of
so
cracking under the pressure.
part of the story though is that you had these types of games that the two of you really enjoyed and found yourself in a position where there was a gap in the market or a product that you really wanted to play, which to your knowledge didn't exist, you couldn't find one that really suited the play. So
Yeah.
he was at this moment of creativity.
It was definitely born out of need, right? Like right. It was definitely a something that we wanted for our relationship. And then also, we really couldn't find that game that we wanted. And so he just made it, which was, I mean, God, what an honor to like be in a relationship. And he's like, we would really like this thing together. Here, I'll craft it for you. And so for a long time, it was really just ours, and so it feels a little bit like our baby because, almost nobody outside of our, our family, our close friends, but mostly ourselves had ever played this game. And so it really felt like such a deep part of our relationship. It was our like whole, we were trying it for the last 5 years, and that's about how long we've been dating. So
where's the leap? Where does it pop out of that and go into, let's put it on Kickstarter?
We didn't even know Kickstarter was a thing. Actually, our first prototype, because we didn't understand this community at all. We have this ugly, I should pull it up, but this Zazzle box, those keepsake wooden box with the sure. enamel on the top. Yeah, we got that printed for $50 or $60 or something to put the game in because we didn't know that prototyping existed. And so, for a long time it was just why not just create this? And we talked at various times about, wouldn't it be fun to publish this? But we'd also both seen How I Met Your Mother. And I think one of the characters' father is a board game designer. And it's sort of portrayed as this crazed loon who is not in touch with reality. And so we sort of just felt like this.
Didn't he make this game on a 2-day bender, totally unattached with reality? I mean, I don't know. That sounds like the person you're describing.
Yes, it is. It's pretty close to the person I'm describing, but it's, so he, we didn't know this existed. We were really out of touch with the community. We were very insular. And so it was actually a friend of a friend. So I was working with someone who had just gotten some graphic design work done for them, a business local to Athens, who was saying that their graphic designer had just started publishing board games. And it was actually Maddox Schuler from Keymaster Games, who does Parks and Caper and all of those. And so they are right down the street from us. And they had just done their first game, Control, and gone through Kickstarter and gotten, I think, $80,000 or something like that. And I was like, wait, Kickstarter? They Kickstarted a board game? That's weird. Okay, maybe I'll talk to them and see what's up with that. And so I met with them several times. They've been an enormous help over the course of our progression to becoming, legitimate. And they hosted, playtest nights for local game designers, and then would, playtest for us, give us all sorts of advice in the industry. And so that was our first real. This has convinced me that industry connections are everything, right? This is such a small niche world of board game consumers and designers that nobody's going to understand what needs to be done for your business better than another person who's already been through it. And so I think, reaching out to people who, as I've reached out to you, reaching out to people who've been through this kind of stuff before is huge. And we wouldn't have been able to do this. We wouldn't have known how.
Right. And actually, I think I completely agree with you, but I just want to take a moment to phrase it differently in that there are a lot of industries where you talk about connections as if they are something that you get through, patriarchy or through connections that you have to be granted. Whereas I think when you say this is all about connections and needing connections in the context of this community space, it's much more no. It means just go talk to people and they'll help you. It's not a pre-existing, you need these connections to succeed type of, metaphor. It's much more.
So when we reached out to them, I was like, we don't know these guys. What are they going to, talk to us about how they did it? And they're our competitors, right? And then I realized no, they're not. In board gaming, nobody really feels like a competitor because, it's not like people buy one game they buy tons of games, and so we can support each other. And the more we get people into gaming, the better for everyone.
And we
so,
get to play each other's games, right?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe, I don't know of another industry that's like this, but coming from other places, I could say the only place that seemed similar to me, and it was maybe even more still more proprietary than gaming is, but I used to work in public health. And the public health world is very giving, right? Like you want good for humanity, so you're willing to share your research and help other people get a leg up and everything. This is even more so than that, and they have every reason in public health to be that way. So
sure.
I just couldn't believe how generous of time everybody was. Glad to push us to give us advice in every direction, including yourself, obviously.
Sure.
So yeah, that was sort of the thing that pushed it over the edge into becoming legitimate.
Well, so let's fast forward for a little bit. So
yeah.
Design the game, playing it on your own, get it to Kickstarter. Clearly, you weren't the only two people that were looking for this product. Massive, again, it's a smaller game, right? So this 180,000 is already big, but it's the 6,000 backers is the big number, right? Like that's a huge Kickstarter, like top 5% type of Kickstarter. And so for board games at least, and so at that point, right, you're sort of thrust into, okay, we need to make this. Presumably, you were excited, but you didn't expect that many backers.
Yes, that's certainly true.
And so take us through sort of how you approached it, and really, the part that is most interesting to me, because it's been the most interesting to watch in all the channels you interact in, is that moving from that to, and hey, how do we do distribution? How do we get localization? How do we not do a 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 unit print, but a 20,000 unit print? So take us through the timer ends and then.
Yeah. So the thing that I had learned through the process was ask questions, right? Like people have these answers. You can find them if you ask the right people, and you people who've got experience, and so it's funny because there's so much support for Kickstarter, and there's not that kind of support for after Kickstarter, right? Like there's a lot of advice on how to do the launching part, and then it just like that just disappears. There aren't a lot of people writing articles on what to do after it ends. I mean, Jamie Stegmaier has ones, and they're amazing, but there's just not the path forward is different for every company, I think, probably. And for us, some people don't care to go to retail. That's absolutely their choice to make. But for us, the like real dream would have been when we were kids, and you would like go into like a trading card store and see these cool things out on the shelves and stuff, and like, my gosh, our game could be on those shelves. And so the question was, if I approach it the way that I did for the Kickstarter, I have to ask a lot of questions. People have these answers. I just need to figure out who to ask and where to go for them. And so the question was, how do we get into retail, right? So we had a retailer pledge level for the Kickstarter campaign, but then how wider than that? We had like something like 35 retailers. Wider than that, how do we get into retail? So then the next question is like, okay, well, if we wanted to do translations, and we actually talked to Michael Raftopoulos, who's with Meeple on Board in Greece, about sort of just how localization even works in the first place. He was the first person to sort of introduce it to us. And then I was like, okay, that's also another interesting avenue. Like we could have this game translated. I didn't even know that was a possibility. And so every sort of like path forward, and then to people talking about distribution, every path forward, it sort of felt like, okay, that's a thing where if I pursue it, I can research it, I can understand it, and then I can see if it's right for us, talk to people and see if I can make connections and relationships in this area too. And it's taken a lot more time and research than the Kickstarter part of it did, because it's a little bit more opaque from my perspective. But it's been really fun. I've gotten to know some really, really cool people. And
and I would say it also doesn't, all the Kickstarter stuff really coalesces into one place, one answer on
Yeah.
one site, right? And so grappling and moving around that is something that I think has a better inertia towards it than some of these are really like different vectors you can pursue,
Yeah.
right? And actually,
Absolutely.
for the benefit of people listening, let me pull back and just list them out here, right? So, hey, you have your Kickstarter, you're obviously going to be responsible for fulfilling that to backers, and fulfillment and fulfillment companies and how you hit different regions. I'm sure your worldwide release in that regard is a piece.
Yeah.
Then there's direct to retail, which is what you were talking about. You 35 retailers finding more, considering, hey, do I want to go on a phone tour and call all these retailers? Then you mentioned distribution, and let's talk about sort of two categories for that. There's distribution where you're working directly with distributors like GTS or ACD, Alliance,
Peach State.
Thank you. I have to.
Yeah.
Mike's PhD is if I don't, they deserve to be there anyway, but they're doing it on their own. They're a big company. But anyway, so that kind of distribution. Within there, sort of actually in front of that or behind that, however you want to think about it, is talking to some of the consolidators, the impressions or PSIs of the world, which are companies that sort of handle those relationships for you and take a cut. And then you started talking about localization, and those are deals with either other publishers or distribution companies in other countries where they'll translate the game. And then there's like different ways of doing those types of deals, whether it's you're licensing to them and they take your game and they reprint and do whatever they want with it and just give you an advance in royalties, or whether you're handling the manufacturing more and it's a little bit more of a different sale. So those are all like the spectrums of ways to continue to push your product out into the market. And you didn't mention it, but I would say another one then is also just direct to consumer. Do you want to have a relationship with Amazon where you're putting it on Amazon as yourself? Do you want to sell it from distantrabbitgames.com or whatever? So there's that window. That
would include conventions as well. And it's there's a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so you're diving headfirst into that. And what are some of the things that you've learned, and where are you guys netting out on a lot of these things?
Yeah, so we've learned quite a few things in this process. We spoke with both PSI and Impressions, and it seems one of the things that we learned is that for small businesses like ourselves, so it was just the two of us, we have nobody else, and so I'm doing a mixture of this and circus arts instruction. Adrian's doing he's a professor, and so we have not an enormous amount of time to dedicate to things the way that other like they renegades and yellows and all those have like divisions within them, like one person's logistics and one person's operation. So it's like everyone
who's listening to or watching these videos, the 100 200 people all fit your category. So don't worry about it. No one from Yellow is like, what did Ed say? Don't worry about it.
So we just don't have that much bandwidth to do everything. And so the great benefit of the consolidators is, for one, we have a single title, and so we're not terribly appealing to distribution, except we did well with the campaign, and so that made us more appealing, and we are working with distribution directly in a couple of places, but then the advantage of consolidation would then be not just that they're getting us out to distributors and then out to retailers, but then also sort of like brokering deals with international distributors, getting people into places like Barnes and Noble and Target and stuff like that. And we've not even approached any of that stuff yet. But it's just things that it's like being able to hand off a part of the logistics and operations of our business to somebody who knows this really well and is incentivized to push for us in that regard. So that's a really appealing opportunity, because it really means that we'll just have more time for game design, which is actually why we got into this in the first place. So that's great. The other thing I would say,
and so wait, is that to say you've decided to go with a consolidator, or are you just sort of saying the advantages of a consolidator?
We're doing a little bit of advantages. We're doing a little bit of a blend. So I haven't finalized any any deals except one. We're doing exclusive distribution deal in Australia. So yeah, one of the other things that, a great opportunity for me in the post Kickstarter phase was actually going to GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association.
And you went, that was like the day before
online
shutdown one, or this year?
This year. The
online one.
Yeah. Yes.
The GAMA last year was like flights getting canceled. That was a pretty crazy one. I didn't know, but okay. You mean, that's great, especially since online. I mean, I'm pretty. I haven't been impressed generally with online conventions, and so for to hear success stories from them, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in general, online conventions compared to in person have been a very different opportunity. So one of the great things about the online convention was that it really gave me an opportunity to easily talk to some of the players in this industry. So I got to talk to Scott from GTS about distribution. And I got to talk to Abby, who we're working with at All Interactive in Australia. And so making those connections was huge. And because I think there were maybe only like 300 people at GAMA because it was an online event. It made it not only easier from the sense of getting FaceTime with people, but then also really I would have had to take a flight and then have a booth and, all of that stuff. And I took all of that time that I would have dedicated to that. And I made an illustration of the booth that we were the fake bar that we were all meeting in. And so it was a great opportunity in the sense that, I don't know that we would have been able to do it as small a company as we are, if not for the fact that it was online. So that was pretty weirdly fortuitous for us. But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some of that gets rolled. One of the things that I think has come out of the last year is, the potential for more hybrid models of online and in person, so that folks who can't really engage or do the direct connection stuff have opportunities to participate, right, in a more meaningful way. I mean, sure, there were probably ways you could participate in years past, but they were marginal at best, right? But something that's more central, I think, is a big part of it. So you've been gaining all this information, and you're starting to. I mean, you're in your manufacturing process, right? I mean, you're moving towards being ready to ship out of the factory, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've got. I think it's hard to tell because it's our first product, and there's always something that comes up where it's oh shoot, there's this one thing and we gotta fix that. And so, but I think about 2 weeks is my best guess from what I've seen.
It certainly doesn't. It doesn't need to be exact for me. But and so in terms of these discussions, I mean, your print is effectively done, right? In other words, so you have the units coming out. It sounds like, I mean, there's backer fulfillment. Well, let's talk about backer fulfillment for a second.
Yeah.
How are you doing? 6,000 people is no joke. How are you from the factory? How are you getting it to folks?
Yeah. So we're doing, well, I can get into nuance, but we're going to have 3 freight shipments that we ourselves are coordinating. And that would be one to the US, one to the UK, and one to Europe. So that's going to be to the EU. And so that's going to be the vast majority of those games going on freight. And we have a full container going to the United States that's going to handle the US and then also Canada. This year, the Brexit situation, it would have been really nice to just ship one to the UK EU.
Yeah, I mean, I just, for those who are happen to not be aware of this and are waiting until they find out, you can't just, so all of this is part of EU, UK friendly type shipping. Mm-hmm. And you used to be able to send one to the EU, but now it's the UK freight and the, Europe, EU freight. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned US, Canada, you mentioned UK, EU. Where are you doing your worldwide from?
From VFI in Asia.
Okay,
they're going to do, and they're also they're sending down to Aetherworks in Australia for all of Oceania.
Right. So, and and who are you using for UK and EU?
That's ShipQuest.
ShipQuest, great. Okay, I mean, so what you're doing is not dissimilar from what I typically do, right? So you're going. ShipQuest is going to handle the EU and UK pieces, and then VFI actually is based out of Asia. They'll pick up from the factory, so there's no freight, and then they're going to parcel it out. They'll do a lot of shipments directly, but for those who don't what they'll also do is then actually independently freight into different countries like Australia to do local shipping to keep shipping reductions down. They used to also do EU shipments, but now there are certain weights they are not willing to do anymore. So like I don't think what I think is worth people sort of grappling with or wrapping their head around is that Brexit isn't only a UK facing issue. It essentially like reestablished custom requirements for all of the EU and UK as it's separated with much more stringent requirements. Not necessarily different, just more actively monitored. And so that's having rippling effects. And so then the rest of it's coming stateside, huge container to your garage. I mean, where, how is that happening?
To bridge distribution in Marietta, Georgia. So one of the considerations with, tax law and everything in the United States is that if you basically have what's called, this is getting into lovely tax nuances, but for sales tax, there's state sales tax, all these different states, and if you own a business and you sell via e-commerce, then for a lot of states, like if I sell just a single unit to North Dakota, I don't have to collect and remit sales tax for North Dakota because it's a big pain. I have one customer there, right? Depending on how much I sell into that region, you can have what's called an economic nexus, which means that you sell enough into North Dakota that they say, even though you're not technically in North Dakota, you do have to collect and remit sales tax from your customers and submit it to North Dakota. But you also have a physical nexus, and so that's where the state in which you are located. So we're located in Georgia, and our goods are also going to be located in Georgia, which is really important for that physical nexus because keeps our state taxes really clean. If we actually warehouse somewhere else in the country, then we would also then have to figure out sales tax for that state. And basically, and that goes then into conventions because every state that you go to a convention in has different tax laws associated with, sales tax and all that.
Right. I think, no.
Yeah.
I think it's all important information. The convention ones, I think like its own thing, which is essentially like, hey, I mean, we haven't been focused on conventions, but just it's worth noting, if you're going to be running a convention, you ever wonder why lots of people at convention are cash only? And it's because what you're supposed to do is you have to register. Some states have convenient convention clauses that allow for you to get like a permit for the day,
like a
and
3-day or like
you're just like, I don't live there. I'm there. I'm part of your e-commerce. Your mayor tried to get a convention here, and we're here now because you guys wanted us here. But so it's like based on your just then, and you can like do it, write it, file it, pay it once. But other states are like, no. You're selling in Ohio as an example. And you have to like sign up, and this is like, you have to engage with the Ohio state government as a company.
Yes.
And you're like, this is, so
and so we're warehoused locally, so that we can just keep it really simple for us for now. And then we're going to take a branch of those goods and freight them, ship them up to Canada to pick and pack logistics. And so that'll be kind of the whole worldwide trajectory of goods.
Yeah. And so, and then you have your amount, and you're currently in the process of determining your U.S. facing distribution / consolidation blend partners, and then you'll be freighting or shipping or trucking copies to their respective warehouses. And once they're in their hands, you're no longer responsible in terms of that warehouse thing, which is a nice reason to work with partners. And so, one of the things that we've said, and hope is clear in talking to you. You've amassed this massive amount of information and become quite the expert. One might even say there's an opportunity for you to make a resource for other folks that contains these details and information. You're a bit post James Matthey. I mean, he was a sort of a giant of the industry who passed away, but he bridged the gap in many ways between like all those things. Like I wish there was a resource at place where this information. He was the guy that got that together.
Oh, yeah. I'm still benefiting from that because that tabletop game Kickstarter advice group was, his creation. And that has been, I mean, that was like our lifeline for years.
Yeah.
Just knowing exactly what to do and having a resource that we can ask people.
Yeah, but but there is, I agree with the gap. And I also think, I mean, part of it, one of the challenges is partnerships can be fluid. So sometimes who's good today isn't as good tomorrow, or who's worked with whom. And also, when you get to stuff like the EU situation and that kind of fulfillment, and that's like a very live and active conversation right now. Like everyone's grappling with that conversation.
And I feel bad too, because there's a part of me that like when people come into the Facebook groups and they're like, I am excited to launch a game I'm going to do worldwide. And I'm like, I really hope you understand what worldwide is going to mean. Do you understand that? Because you don't know how much work you're in for. Like it's going to be a tough ride, especially if you're a small business.
Yeah, no, it's I'm on Kickstarter 15 or 16, right? It's such a significant issue that Foliferous was pretty standard approach, but heading into future Kickstarters in next year, I don't know what sort of campaigns I'm going to be doing in what context. I don't know, like EU friendly, UK friendly, like the what Jamie brought to the forefront with all of his products and his information. I think people are going to be walking away from that in the coming years. And I'm like it's such a significant burden for me, at least. It's like, maybe I just do a U.S. campaign and just focus on the States, and then let partners deal with other regions, because it wasn't being a worldwide importer wasn't really my plan for the business. So
and I think that for anyone who doesn't know, one of the probably the most complex and probably expensive portions of this is that when you if I lived, let's say if I lived in France and I was creating a game and I was selling it in France, just like I'm in the United States, I pay taxes and sales tax and all that on my business. If I then sold to Germany or Spain or other EU member states, then I'm considered a distance seller, which means that there are special laws, and if I meet a certain threshold, then I have to also register in those states, sort of like what we have with the tax situation in the United States, where different US states require you to register for state sales tax. But if you don't live in the EU and you sell any amount into the EU, you're required to register as a business, register for VAT and remit those taxes. And what that means, and this is, they've changed the laws, so they're starting in July 1st. What this means is that the second that a Kickstarter ends, if you sold anything to the EU, you are now required to remit your VAT, their sales tax, to the proper country authorities. You have to be registered. And I've not yet found an EU member state that has the registration forms in English. I think maybe Ireland does, but they're hard to ship from. So it has to be the same place where you ship your goods into. And so, and so to get registered, to have somebody else do it for you is about $3,000. So you have to have had a really successful Kickstarter campaign for it to be worth it to fulfill to EU backers. And it's a similar situation in the UK, except that if you speak English, you can actually do the forms yourself. So it has made, it's made doing business via Kickstarter into some regions really, really cost prohibitive for small businesses. And so my advice right now to new creators has been launch and say you're not doing UK or EU, or particularly EU, because that's going to be a whole can of worms in terms of registration. If it looks like you're doing well enough, then say you're opening it up, right? Because then you'll have the funds to be able to do the VAT tax regulation portion of it. But don't go in, because if you have a $20,000 campaign with 600 backers or something, and just a handful of them in the EU, that can sink you if you're worried about that VAT compliance. And it can also be hard to get your goods into the country if you don't have that already in place. So it just makes it way tough for people.
Yeah, and certainly these are all challenges that are way bigger and broader than the board game industry. So there are a lot of movements right now to have at least consolidated VAT, like basically shipment portal and ways in which it's like, hey, let's just like gather all the money for all the parties and then on the back end distribute it, but not make every single person trying to ship something into every one have to deal with it, right? And so whether those systems are get approved or passed through law and those kinds of things are going to take some time. And
right now it's a big shakeup. Everyone's just trying to figure out, and all of us little guys are all sitting here going like, what's going to happen?
So those are the challenges. And so I guess one question, we've been talking for over a half hour now, but one of the things I'm personally curious about is, so you've been doing this like aggressive, comprehensive, detailed, you're like, we met in grad school. I was like, oh, all right, well, but there you go. But comprehensive review of all these pieces.
Yeah.
Do you feel, is this exciting for you? Like, are you like, and now I feel, I guess because it's sort of like the level you are taking on more detailed information and partnerships than maybe is commensurate with just being two people. And, is that burden starting to feeling overwhelming, or do you feel like you have it organized and understood enough that it's under control? I mean, where do you feel?
I feel pretty, to me, it's like a puzzle where I'm revealing pieces as I go. And, there are parts of it that I still don't fully understand or haven't fully experienced, but the more I understand about it, the easier I think it gets. It felt very overwhelming at first. And the more research I do, the better I feel, I feel confident moving forward. I feel like I know what kind of partnerships I want for our business. I'm a big advocate of the like knowledge is power kind of thing. And so, I've always been like a big, just research everything and understand it more thoroughly if I can. And this is no different. There are people out there who have a vast well of knowledge who aren't the Jamie Stegmeyers or James Matthews who are writing blogs for everybody. And if I can just get that information, then I can spread it around. And so that's one of the things I am terrible about sticking to a schedule and keeping to like publishing things. I've tried being a content creator in the past and it has not worked terribly well for me. But one of the things that I've taken pretty seriously since doing all of this, because this is all just a waste if it's just me, like even I recognize the amount of work that goes into this is sure great for our business, but it's a waste to amass this information and then leave other people just completely in the dark. And so I've tried to share as much as I could about the things that I do know, and then, reach out to people when I don't know something, even if it doesn't relate to me, but then also reach out to new creators who are looking for some part of the mentor program on the tabletop Kickstarter advice, and have worked with some creators trying to help them through their first Kickstarter, or, what to do afterwards, how to deal with logistics. And so I'm not by any means an expert at any of this. I don't know that I've met anybody that has been really actually, because it's so complex and it involves like laws in countries where you don't get to read it in the proper language and stuff. So it's just a matter of, trying to understand it as well as I can. But yeah, my big philosophy is it's got to benefit someone other than just me. And so however, in whatever way I can pass that forward to other people, that's what I want to be doing.
I'm certainly a proponent of that. I think, one of the things I would just mention is sometimes more information doesn't have to be perfect information. So if the gargantuan project is to like have everything consolidated, organized, and triple checked, you can do that. But sometimes it's just simply a matter of providing working material that people can sort of see and understand.
Yeah.
But it's been awesome to watch the sponge at work.
It's not obnoxious after a while. So many questions.
I mean, no, it's fine.
I was the hand raiser in class. I know. I'm sure people are like, "Oh my God, Julie, stop it."
It's quite the show. But you are now, you haven't finished your first at bat, right? Like you're actually, as far as the process is concerned, still your information is distant, but you're actually still only at fulfillment, right? So you'll be imagine how informed you'll be once you've actually gone through
I know. I'm really looking forward to that day.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there. But anyway, thanks so much for being on, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, bye. Awesome.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.